Hello, Heart Rockets. It's Miss Span here, and happy Earth Day. Today, we are going to be creating a project using materials that you already have at home. And this is going to be kind of studying sculpture. Our next project in the art studio was going to be using clay to create our different sculptures. And while we can't be in the art studio together right now, you can still sculpt and build a three-dimensional art project using this easy recipe for salt dough. So today we're going to be using a recipe that is super simple and with hopefully things that you already have at your house. Flour, salt, and water. So I'm going to be mixing together these ingredients first to show you guys how to make this dough, and then we're going to show you how to make different things using the dough. I've got a couple different textures and tools that I've collected. I've got a fork, I've got a pencil, a marker, a stick that I found out in my backyard. I've got scissors, I've got a cup, and I've got cookie cutters. I've got a brush, I've got seashells. So anything that you can kind of go around your house and do a texture hunt so that you find things that might make a cool design or a cool imprint inside of your clay. And then that is stuff I'm going to use in a little bit here. But for my recipe, I'm going to mix first together my dry ingredients. That means ingredients that are not wet, like my flour and my salt. I'm going to get a cup first of flour. So I'm getting my flour out here and I'm just kind of leveling it off. And then I'm going to put it into my mixing bowl here that is ready to go. And you probably want your parents to help you with this part so you don't make a big old mess all over the kitchen. But I'm done with my flour. Now I'm going to get my salt. So I was a cup of flour, and I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of salt. This is going to make a small ball of dough. If you want to make extra, you can double or triple your recipe. When you double something, you times it by 2. If you triple something, you're timesing it by 3. So if I was going from a 1/4 cup of salt and I wanted to double my recipe, I would use half because that's double the amount. So here I'm going to fill up my 1/4 cup with my salt. And this is just regular table salt that you can find at Walmart if you don't already have it at home. So I've got a 1/4 cup here of salt, and I'm going to dump it in and mix that with my flour. I'm using a long wooden spoon. You can use a whisk or a spatula or a spoon or whatever you have to mix it together. So I've got my dry ingredients mixed together here, and those are now ready for me to add in my wet ingredient. My wet ingredient is water, and all I need is a 1/4 cup of water. But I want to do this slowly. If I add it too fast, it can get too kind of clumpy and messed up. So I'm going to add it slowly here. And as I'm adding it, I'm going to mix it. So this might be where you have a helper, your brother or sister, your mom or dad can help you to mix it together. So here I'm going to start and I'm mixing it together. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the water and mix. Adding a little bit more. And it's going to start to get kind of clumpy. You're going to see that it gets little bits that are clumping together, kind of like this. Let me show you. So it's got little clumps that are coming together. And I'm going to keep adding more water. So I'm going to add a little bit more and mix it up. And if you see that it's starting to come together, that is what you want. I'm going to add a little bit more. Almost all of it here. I'm stirring it up really good to make sure it's all mixed together. Just like when you're baking or cooking, you want all the ingredients to be well mixed together. Added a little bit more there. And it's getting pretty good and sticky and mixed up. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of my water, but not all of it, because I'm seeing that it's coming together and I just have a teensy bit of water left in there that I'm not going to use. So it's okay if you don't use all of your water if it's getting pretty sticky. So now I've got my mixture and it's really coming together. It's looking pretty thick and sticky in there, but I'm going to take it out now and I'm going to mix it together with my hands to make sure that it's all well mixed together. And it's going to be pretty, feel kind of very sticky and doughy. So I'm going to get all my dough together here and I'm going to mix it up with my hands. You're going to get a little bit messy here, and that's okay. Once I've got it all mixed together, I'm going to scrape off my hands and I'm going to let the dough sit in my mixing bowl for about 15 or 20 minutes because I don't want to use it yet. It won't be ready yet. If it's too sticky, if you added too much water, what do you think you could do? Miss Span would probably add a little bit more flour because if it's too wet, you need a dry ingredient. So I'm gonna get the rest of this off my hands here. It's really sticky, so I might need to add some flour, even though I didn't add all my water. It's kind of rainy today, so it's a little bit humid. Miss Span's gonna go wash my hands really quick, and I'll be right back. All right, thankfully, I already have a dough that I made yesterday. And when I made the dough yesterday, I had put it into a plastic bag. So I'm gonna take it out now and I'm gonna show you guys some things that you'll be able to do with your clay. With my salt dough right here, I'm gonna share my screen now so that you guys can see some different ideas for projects. And you should be seeing my screen. I'm going to take a little bit of dough, and that's the recipe right there that you can use at home. There is the different measurements and the different tips and suggestions for how you can use it. When I'm using my salt dough, I put a little bit of flour on the counter so that I can roll it out or so that I can mix it without it sticking to the counter. On the next slide, you'll see some history of clay. On the next slide, the history of clay goes back thousands of years. Artists have used clay for a very long time to make pieces that are functional, like cups and bowls and plates, and items that are not functional, like an art piece. On the next slide, you'll see some different techniques. So we can make a slab. If I have a ball of clay here like this, I can make a slab by pushing it between my fingers, or my hands, sorry, and it's gonna make a flat, almost like a pancake of my dough. When I have a pancake of my dough, I can use a cookie cutter to cut out a shape of my dough, and I can even add in different textures. So I've got a shape cut out here, and I can use my different tools, like I'm using my fork right now, to add in designs and textures to my clay. And I can use different tools like my shell, and I'm pressing in to see a different texture that might create. If it sticks to it a little bit, that's okay. You can start again and roll it up and try again. I can also roll out a coil. A coil is like a snake. So I'm gonna roll with my two hands here to create what's called a coil. And I'm just going to have my coil just like a long snake, and I can spin that around in a spiral to create a little snail or a lollipop. And you'll see how you can use the spirals even more further on. So I've got a spiral right there you made using my coil. For a pinch pot, which a lot of you guys I know have made with Miss Span, I'm gonna form my clay into a ball, and then I'm gonna stick my finger in the center, my thumb, and I'm going to pinch and twist. Pinch and twist, and that's gonna make a little bowl like this. So when you're making a pinch pot, you can pinch and twist. On the next slide, you guys will see some new ideas for projects. So I can use I've got a circle right here that kind of flattened out a little bit for a clay owl. I can fold over my little wings, and I'm going to use my marker here and my pencil to add some texture. So I'm going to add little designs into the bottom of my owl. I can add little eyeballs to him. I could even draw with my pencil my face of my owl. He's looking pretty cute on mine, if you see. On the next slide, there's some extra ideas, and I'll post this PowerPoint in your lessons, in your projects. But you can see that there are a lot of different ideas for ways to create your owl. So Miss Span has mine here. When you're making your project, if it's sticking to the table because it's a little too sticky, you might want to add a little bit of flour on it and let it sit for a little bit to dry out, because it could stick to the table. So if it's too sticky, let it stay for a little while on the table and then pick it up later that day and it'll dry out. On the next slide, you'll see a couple more examples of owls, and then we move on to creating a fish. If you want to create any kind of animal with the clay, you can, but I can create a shape of the body of my fish here. I'm going to smush out my clay, and I'm going to add on a tail. I can add on fins, and then I can decorate it with different designs. So I'm going to add a little bit of clay to the back of my fish like this. And I know you guys can't see mine, but it looks a lot like what you see in the pictures there. On the next slide, you'll see that there's lots of ways that you can add detail with coils and with different things. I'm adding an eyeball. I'm making a little coil by rolling it between my hands, or I can roll it on the table to make a little extra detail, and I can cut off some of that too. Then I'm going to use things like my stick here, and I can press into my clay to add different details to my fish. The last project I wanted to show you guys after the fish is a coil pot. And this is you might have to add a little more flour to your dough to make it stick a little bit better. But this is going to be made using those coils that we talked about earlier, those rolls of clay. And you can build the coils up higher and higher and higher if you made extra dough. And those can create a pot or a vase or a cup as you start to build them up. So Miss Span's going to make the base. I made a spiral just like I did before. And then I can make the walls by making them go up higher and higher and higher. And you guys will see in the slides that there's a lot of different ways and ideas that you can add more onto your coil piece. The last thing I wanted to show you guys after the coil piece is that you can also use the salt dough, and you can use a piece of cardboard at your house. I drew a little design on mine, a little field with a tree and the sun. And on here, I'm going to start to create an animal, or you can make a flower, whatever you want. I'm going to use a coil, and I'm going to attach it on just by pressing it into the cardboard a little bit here. Once I have it pressed on, then I can add in my other parts. So I'm going to add in the center of my flower, and I can keep going until I have all of the petals and all of the pieces. You could create an animal this way. You could create a whole scene using the salt clay to make your little world. So this is a really fun and flexible project where you guys can make really anything your imagination can think of at home. Once you're done with your salt clay, you can bake it in the oven for about 2 hours at a low temperature of about 200 degrees, or you can also leave it just out to air dry. Once it's air dried, you guys can paint it. You can color it with markers. You can really add glitter, whatever materials you have at home. You can use those to create your color and add in more detail. Oh, there goes a flower petal. And add in more detail with your petals. So I just saved this cardboard from a box that we got something in, and I can even make like a little butterfly in the sky over here. You can make animals, you can make extra details, as much as you can. So I hope you guys make something. If you make something today, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen with you guys. And if you create something using the salt dough, if you do make the salt dough, please, please, please send me a picture. I want to see what you guys are creating, what you're making at home using these ingredients. They're not fancy. You hopefully have them on hand, or you can go get them at the grocery store. And you can experiment and build and create using this clay recipe, and you can make it as many times as you want. I hope you guys create something and stay creative. Send me your pictures. I want to see what you're making, and I can't wait to see you guys back in person. So here's my little salt clay creation that I've created. I could have made an animal too. I could add on a dinosaur in there. Lots of other details. So have fun with it, guys. I miss you so much. I'm gonna go wash my hands now because, hey, part of art is getting a little bit messy sometimes. Love you guys so much. Mwah.